Hey, it's Coach T. This is my C Sharp in a year devlog. This is week 9, I think. I just started the new school year and I'm fighting off a head cold along with my youngest baby. So we have matching head colds for the first week of school. Great way to start September, you know. You probably hear it in my nose. So I'm going to keep this short because I don't really want to talk out loud for that long because I've got the type of head cold that's like up in your upper nasal tract, so it makes talking feel itchy. But with me going back to work, which was well overdue, I'm really grateful to be back and to see everybody and to get the ball rolling. I've just had less time to do programming, and that was the expected curve. It's why I worked so hard on it this summer in order to maximize the time while I had it, make hay while the sun shines and all that. So, largely what I focused on is I went back to learn.microsoft and I went back to Unit 4 for them because I knew, having finished Catacombs of the Class with R.B. Whitaker and having finished up Christina's masterclass unit or module 3, that I was kind of at a turning point where we're going to go way deeper into object-oriented programming, but I still had this lingering resource that really got me started with C Sharp that I haven't finished yet. And I've been working towards the certification on Free Code Camp, kind of as my own feather in my cap. But I wanted to get a little bit of that out of the way, and it's text based, so I can go through it much faster than I could through video curricula. And the Learn.Microsoft exercises are generally pretty challenging. So that was neat. I worked through most of Unit 4 doing substring stuff. That was not neat. That was really tedious, but I can see why it would be useful if I'm pulling data off of a report, for example, and I know exactly how something's formatted. Now I have an idea of how I might go about pulling data off of a report. I have a feeling I might be able to use that for something like a PDF as well. So that's largely what I worked on is substring operations through Module 4 on Learn.Microsoft. I did a little bit of the R.B. Whitaker stuff. I started reading the chapter on inheritance, and I used that to write a dummy class of like monster, and then I had a couple other creatures, and I practiced with inheritance a little bit. That's something I have familiarity with Python. Having done a couple games in Pygame, we had class creature, and then one became player, one became a cactus or something, and one was something else. So I'm not totally alien to the idea of inheriting. It definitely feels a little bit easier in C Sharp than it did in Python, but that could just be that I have like 2 or 3 extra months of familiarity in terms of my practice time because I had so much time over the summer, whereas I was working on Python after school in the spring. So that could just be a bias of exposure. But it worked. I was able to basically, I took what Whitaker wrote and I created class creature, and that I was immediately able to create a derived class, which was like rat or something like that. And then I started playing with the idea of creating another class that represents move sets. But I think that's actually an interface issue. We're determining the type of move set, and I don't know enough about interfaces to implement them. So I have a growing awareness of some of these concepts that would have been way beyond me 6 months ago. And now I'm starting to see with object oriented programming, like, oh, I don't want to just have one master class set that says, oh, for move sets, if the enumerated type is rat, which is something that I set up, when I instance it, I don't want to have to filter through, hundreds or thousands of moves or, however. I was thinking of Pokemon, to filter out the moves that are available to that and then to decide which ones it has and doesn't have at a given moment. That felt like having an interface might be a better way to do that. But I don't know. I don't know what I don't know. So, every week has been teaching me more. You don't know what you don't know, but if we just keep pulling the thread slowly but surely, we'll get there. So I worked on inheritance a little bit. Yesterday I had a lot of time, but I honestly I can't think straight really because I've got so much pressure in my head. So I just took the night off and we watched some Studio Ghibli movies, and that was a nice, relaxing way to end the work week. I'm hoping I'm out on the other side of this tomorrow because it sucks to work with a cold. And I know I have working at a school. I basically go to work in a ball pit every day, like a Chuck E. Cheese ball pit where everything's filthy and germ ridden. So you'd think I'd have an immune system, but I was out all summer and immediately head cold. So did a little bit of inheritance. I did actually write five, I think five static classes for common calculations that I do with data manipulation, things that are they're proprietary formulas for some assessments that we use. They don't have a lot of moving parts, but what I did is I just turned them into a simple input output static class, and I can call up my program. It's a console app, and I can input the relevant numbers and then call like static, dibbles.maze adjust was one of the ones that I did. And I'm the only person that has to do it. And in that example, the formula is so simple that I can do it out of just my head, but there are a couple other ones like trying to find the Dibbles composite score. That was more complicated, and now it's a static class. So if somebody needs a composite score for Dibbles at work, and we don't have the kids' data, for example, like maybe it's a new student who was just pushed in, so we don't have them in our framework yet. Well, I can use my console app and I can spit out, what is this kid's composite score? Why would they use it? I don't know. I discourage people from using the composite score, but that's neither here nor there. I can do it because I wrote the static classes, or static class Dibbles and static class QPS, and there's like three of them, and then each one has the relevant methods for the common calculations, so I don't ever have to write those again. And then I couched them in their own namespace as well, assessments namespace, so I can call it. So what you're seeing here is part of something I was toying with like Monday or Tuesday after work, and I was just basically trying to think of like what are all the student data that we might need to know, or that I might want to call up on a kid. So the student, there's more here than I remember writing. Yeah, it's yeah. So we got main menu. This is very early. I've only written little bits and pieces. There's my run app logic. Main menu. Do you want to add a student, view a student, remove a student, quit, or and then reports the choice. So I haven't touched this in like 3 or 4 days. I don't necessarily remember where I was going with it, but I did do this with the CRC model. I can't remember where I put the cards because when I get sick, my memory starts to go. But if I remember, it does work. Let's find out. I actually forgot how much of this I'd put together. Let's see. What happens if I hit V? View a student? Okay, nobody's there. Let's add a student. We'll call him Bob Builder. Oh. Tennyson. He is a 6th grader. View a student. Okay, so I guess we're not viewing a student apps. What if I do... Oh. Can I remove? Yeah, I guess that one doesn't work yet, and then quit. So yeah, it's another console app. It's nothing fancy, but I was really playing with properties because they're a barrel of laughs, right? But I'm just trying to get better at using these. So yeah, get name pulls their first and last name together. Yeah, well, there's more here than I thought there was. But next week, hopefully, I'm over this, and I'm debating pausing to study something like Blazor or WinForm for a couple of weeks because I'm starting to think the amount of information that I'm intaking versus the projects for context that I'm practicing on may be out of balance. And what is likely to happen then is as I learn things, I'm likely to forget them. I'm likely to forget them quickly without context because the way that our memory works, particularly our long-term memory, is schematically. So the more nodes, the more schematic links in your memory, the easier it is to integrate new information and hold it in the long term while it instantiates and actually becomes a part of the physical network in there. So if I go right into inheritance and polymorphism and interfaces and generics, and I'm trying to think of what else is beyond that, I think I run the risk of cutting myself off at the knees right when I'm starting to run, because I might start forgetting how those things are implemented. So I was thinking, I have HTML now. Like on the side, I've more or less taught myself HTML as well. So I have HTML. I'm very comfortable with at least intermediate CSS. I've been building a bunch of template web page flex boxes and box layouts, kind of as a aesthetic curiosity. But what I found I can do is, at work between meetings, I can sketch out in my notebook, what I want to build, and then how do those things have to relate with just some basic designer arrows. I'm literally hand drawing them, and then when I get home from work, I can work on a web page template layout like that for my daughter, or not for my daughter, but while my daughter's playing around me or talking to me or whatever, and I can pretty quickly put together the Flexbox stuff. It really doesn't challenge me very much. And I built her a zoo website, or a zoo web page a week or two ago, that I want to go back and rebuild so that she can have more kitty pictures. But I have enough HTML and CSS now that I'm almost thinking, like, would it be worth it to start to learn Blazor? Because ultimately I want to build a student information app or a teacher resource app. And I have C# up through object-oriented design now. I understand properties, I understand classes, I even get inheritance, although I don't necessarily understand how that would be pertain to something like a Blazor app. But the reason I don't understand that is because I don't have the context. So is it time to pause the forward march and instead take a side quest, to borrow one of Whitaker's terms, and go learn about one of these other libraries so that I can start to put things into practice? When I paused to do FOOPBall, which consumed most of a week because I built it 3 or 4 times, that taught me so much about object-oriented programming and how to implement and link classes together and to manage the dependencies. That project was really, really eye-opening. And it helped me break my internal preference for procedural programming. So I'm wondering now, like 3 or 4 weeks later, is it time to go explore at least the basics of another framework like Blazor or like Windows Presentation Foundation, although I'm leaning towards Blazor for the interactivity and the ability to access it via the internet. Maybe it's time to take a week or two to just build a basic project and learn. So that's it. Week 9 has lots of questions, not a lot of progress. It has a head cold. So if you've listened this whole way, drop a like or whatever, subscribe to the channel. I am trying to teach myself as much C# as I can in the course of a year as a working dad with 2 kids, doing it responsibly, putting family first, but also making sure that I'm continuing to challenge myself and grow. And I'm documenting it here so that in a year, in 2025 in July, I can come back and say, look how much you learned in a year, because in July 2023, you got scared off. So we're documenting it, and I'm looking forward to watching the growth cycle and the change in thought processes. So that's it. Thanks for listening to my video. I'm Coach T. There will be more Python videos, I think, this week. I did finish the Affinity playlist, and I've got another one that I'm cooking. More basic from the rocks, get the beginners up and rolling. But most of my focus was C# this week. So it was a lot of fun. And I don't know, maybe next week I'll have a library that we started on. We'll see.